Hello and welcome back to Ontology Explained. I'm Casey Hart, philosopher and ontologist, and this is the second video in our Let's Build series. We're going to build a chess ontology together. In episode 1, we just started from scratch, put together our turtle file. In episode 2, we are going to continue expanding it, get to some chess pieces. I'm going to show you how I use Protege as part of, essentially as a chance to compile my ontology and make sure I haven't screwed anything up. So let's just jump into it. All right, here we go. We have the file, and the first thing that I want to do, let me make sure I got the name here. Shout out to @JulianChastain, who gave me a comment and said, "What's up with the stuff at the top? Like, you have all these prefixes. Like, clearly those are the things that you want to use, but why do you pick the ones that you picked? What's up with those?" So let's talk our way through that. And when I looked at that, the first thing that I notice is I need to go fix my Emacs macro for starting new turtle files because I double stuff up. So those are all duplicates. So actually, my prefixes are much shorter. Sorry for that. That's how you know I'm being honest. I didn't delete that off video. You get to see me admitting that I screwed stuff up. And now let's just run down the prefixes one by one. So first one is the base prefix for this file. It's just a colon, caseysdenseontology.com. That's the same prefix that I use for all of my dense ontologies. So nothing new there. You can, if you're building this yourself, you can start with whatever IRI scheme you want to. And then we have OWL, and RDF, and RDFS. All three of those are core. If you're building an ontology, an RDF ontology, an OWL ontology, those are the languages that you want to be inheriting and pulling stuff from. Why do you take that? Because you're going to say things are OWL classes, you're going to use RDFS labels, you're going to create properties, and those properties are going to have domains and ranges. That means you're going to have to leverage that existing OWL RDF, RDFS language. So you want that for sure. XSD, that we're just pulling for data types mostly. So this is an XSD string. We'll have, for dates, we have XSD dates. I'm not using XSD for really anything else. And then SCOS and SCOS-XL. I rarely, if ever, use SCOS-XL, but I'm trying to even think what special, this tells you how little I use it. I don't off the top of my head know which terms are more part of SCOS-XL. SCOS is got broader and narrower and pref label and alt label. So this is a good one for providing like lexical documentation over the top of things. I use this frequently enough that I just pull these all in to start with. XML, I don't think I use very frequently at all. I'm trying to remember. There have been a couple of cases. This is another one that's sort of part of the stock, like OWL, RDF, RDFS. Like RDF and RDFS are building up over the top of XML. So it makes sense to have it around, I guess, but I don't know that I ever call that out. So this is one that I could if I was really careful right now, maybe I would drop XML and SCOS-XL. But there's no harm in having a couple extra prefixes, especially ones that you might want to use. So this is a pretty decent library to start with. Of course, if there are other ontologies that you want to pull in, you'd throw them at the top here. So if you want to use BFO as an upper ontology that you're bringing stuff into, or you want to use gist or something like that, then I'd have those prefixes up on top. Also note, having the prefixes here is different from importing the ontologies. That's a separate bit. So this just means that I can call out to these with this prefix. That's it. It doesn't mean that I'm inheriting the vocabulary. That said, whenever you're calling out to these, it's probably because you're thinking of your ontology as being joined to those ones. And so, like, I'm using this Casey's dense ontology term here. And that's because I'm going to merge this with my upper ontology, or really I'm going to open my upper ontology and import this domain ontology probably, so I can just see them all in the same spot. So I'm going to make pretty frequent use of classes that are already part of my core ontology, such as person. And so to show that, that's where let's just look at my master ontology, right? That's where we go here, and I'd say, look, I make reference to person. Do I have person somewhere? Yeah, I do. That's how I represent person in my upper ontology. We put together this ontology yesterday. Well, not yesterday, but in the last video a few days ago. And I want to make sure that things are well formatted. And if I'm going to do that, I need some way to say, okay, will this compile essentially? And a bunch of different ways that you could do that. You could load it into a triple store and make sure there are no errors on the file load. There are robot and other utilities that we can run over it to just check and make sure it's well formed. And I'll show you those at a different point in time. But a place that I think is a great spot to start, especially when you're building stuff new. And honestly, I still do this a fair amount to this day. So it's not like you should only do this if you're a rookie. We can look at Protege. So if I open up Protege, I can view my ontology here. It'll tell me various facts about it. I don't think we've done any tutorials of Protege on this channel. It's publicly available. If you just search Protege, you can get it from Stanford's website, and you can download it for free and play around with it. It's a nice way to learn how to build ontologies. It's sort of it's used for both viewing and for developing. I think more people use it for development than purely as a visualizer. And you can do things like add a new class here, and you can add a child class, etc. We're not going to do that. One warning, by the way, if I do any changes to this ontology in this viewer and save it, it will reformat the file. So we'll save it and change, like re-alphabetize things. If you had comments and stuff, you'll lose those. So just a warning, if I ever wanted to make a change here to see what it would look like in the ontology, then I wouldn't just save it. I would save as for another file, and then I could look and do a diff between the two and then keep my preferred version. I may or may not have experience of destroying one of my files when I was learning how to do this, so don't fall prey to that and lose all your comments and your style. That's frustrating. Okay. Let's just see how this works. Let's suppose that I just put blob right there, and I save it, and I go back here. It says the ontology file is changed. Would you like to reload? And we can say yes. And it says, oh no, we failed. So I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but I'm being kind of naive. So let me just open up the file again that we want to see, which is this chess.ttl. And here we can see the error bit. We can click over to the turtle syntax, and it says, oh, we saw blob, but we were expecting a period. Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I ended that with blob. Let me just save that updated and reload it. Sure, you can access my desktop folder. Go for it. All right. And now we can see that it loads fine. Let me get this stuff. So this is really useful periodically as I'm making changes to the ontology. I'll pop over here. The class hierarchy might tell me, oh, chess piece, rook. Yeah, that's what I want to see. That's great. So this gives you a little bit of visual confirmation that what you said is what you wanted to say. And also, if you ever get an error because you put an extra semicolon somewhere or something, you'll see that. And if you're regularly making a few changes, checking in the compiler, going back, that tighter loop will let you know when you make an error, and you can fix it faster instead of doing something over and over again. Yeah, especially useful as you're first getting started, because you're going to make errors all the time when you're editing the turtle directly, and hopefully you'll get better and smoother as you go, but take that opportunity for a feedback loop. All right, so today we've got stuff about chess player. We were able to state that Magnus Carlsen has these properties. That's cool. We said birth date, Norway. That's not what I want to say. I want to say he's got this FIDE rating, and he's got this birth date. Cool. I meant to say birthplace, didn't I? But we don't have the vocabulary yet to say that. That's something we can do eventually if we want to. Let's just say for now we want to talk about our chess players as how old they are and what their FIDE ratings are. And this was in the example data down here because I was just sketching it out. So I don't care that much about that. Instead, I wanted to move it up here into this is sort of my accepted approach. And then I want to be able to say things about chess pieces and chess as being a game. So let's go ahead and make some new classes and new individuals. The individual we want to create here is chess, right? I want to say that chess is a game. Actually, let's just... So the individual name is chess, and it's an instance of game. And what do we want to call it? Just chess, something like that. Maybe have a more thorough comment here. It's an instance of game. And if I really wanted to expand my game ontology for chess, it's a turn-based full information strategy game or something like that. That might be cool if we were doing a taxonomy of games. Now I'm not interested that much in distinguishing chess from the other sorts of games. We're just going to take as primitive that chess is an instance of game and just be happy with that. And we want to get our types of pieces as well. So let's create a few more classes. We want chess piece, which is a subclass of a lot of things that could be a subclass of. But let's just say that every chess piece is a physical artifact. So we've got so chess piece, this class of all physical artifacts that are pieces used, maybe intended to be used in games of chess. And example subclasses will be rook, pawn. An example instance, I could come up with an instance, but I don't feel like having those examples are going to be that more illustrative for us. If the subclasses are rook and pawn, the instances are going to be like my rook or my pawn in this particular game, something like that. Now, one thing we might be thinking about here, and this will get us into the weeds, but hey, I guess that's the point of this video, right? Is that I'm trying to give you some insights into how I think about building this stuff when I'm building ontologies. I'm a little uncomfortable with saying that chess pieces are physical artifacts. And the reason for that is that while we do have some chess pieces, like I've got some that I can see over on a table behind me over there, when I play chess on chess.com, I move the rook around and I move a knight around. So those chess pieces are virtual chess pieces. Seems like since we can have both virtual chess pieces and physical chess pieces, that making chess piece a subclass of physical artifact is a little bit problematic. I guess I could just make it artifact, and then we have both physical and non-physical artifacts. But in the case of virtual games, something like the rook on the computer screen is a abstraction away from the physical artifacts. And maybe virtual rooks are just stand-ins for a physical thing, but like fundamentally what a rook is a physical thing. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I also wonder, because you have, someone like, who is the character in Queen's Gambit? Now I'm going to blank on her name. But sort of famously, she was watching the games on the ceiling and could like envision them, right? So she was looking at a rook or something that was a approximation of a rook. And is that mental entity a rook in the same sense that like the physical chess piece of a rook is a rook? Unclear to me. What I'm going to say for now is I'm a little hesitant about the physical artifact piece, but I don't know that it's going to come back to bite us yet. So let's just run with it as a physical artifact. And then if we have to recategorize it and that's going to cause some problems for us in the future, we'll fix it then. But I just wanted to flag that. So whenever you're talking about a new class and you want to situate it, think really carefully about edge cases. Is there anything that falls outside of it? And then eventually you're going to have to make a choice of like, okay, well, do I change this then? Or do I just go for it knowing that I might run into some issues and then we'll have to address them later? this is why you should build a bunch of ontologies and build a bunch of ontologies on your own as early as you can, and then run into those problems, do stupid stuff, and then that will build up your repertoire, your toolkit, whatever metaphor you want to use. Okay, let's make some more chess pieces. So we want to have rooks, and rook is a subclass of chess piece, and the lexical is just going to be rook, and those are all. What we discovered here is I shouldn't have put that colon behind rook when I was defining it. Okay, cool. So these are all chess pieces that look like castles or are derived from that origin. They can move in straight lines as until they collide with another chess piece. They can capture the first enemy piece they would run into. I don't know, something like that. So that already tells me some stuff. Like I might want to have as part of my ontology something about what they look like. And I certainly want to have some stuff to represent what their movement patterns can be. So what sorts of activities are they capable of? Which might mean that we're going to have some event type, which is moving a piece, and then sub-event types for like moving on the diagonal or moving in a straight line, and there's going to be capturing a piece. This already is telling me, okay, here are some other things that I'm going to need to talk about. Maybe I'll just put some notes to myself down here. I need moving a piece. I need capturing a piece. I need checking a king. I need checkmating a king. Maybe it's checking a king, checkmating an opponent, which is a subset of these events. Okay, so I'm going to need to hit all of that stuff. But let's first just get our other types of pieces here. Are we going to have any notable subclasses of rooks? Maybe we'll have like a king and queen's rook. That might make sense, but nothing jumps off to me, so I'm just not going to give example cases here. Okay, and then we're going to do bishop. And that is a subclass of chess piece. Ooh, this is going to give us another... Actually, we could say this about rook, too. Let's get there. All right, so let's talk naming. I want to call these bishops. I'm creating a chess ontology, but this chess ontology is just living in the same namespace as my Casey's dense ontology. Here's a problem. There are other things that are bishops, named like what chess bishops are named after, right? So if I want to talk about a bishop as in the religious office, right? How do I know which bishop is which bishop? So far in my ontology, I'm only going to define this bishop. And at some point, if I wanted to talk about like the Archbishop of Canterbury or something like that and say that they were a bishop, I could not say that they're an instance of bishop because bishop is the class of the chess pieces and the Archbishop of Canterbury is not one of those. So I have a choice here. Either I can say bishop-chess piece, which is a naming convention I usually adopt where if you want to do some disambiguation, you can just do a dash. I could say, you know what, this bishop is the first and foremost bishop, and I could have bishop religious office or something, or like religious person for the more specific class if I wanted to talk about persons that are bishop as opposed to just bishop the chess piece. You can say the same thing for rook above, right? Like if I wanted to talk about rook, like there's a game that's the rook, there's rook that's the type of bird. And if I'm worried about collision, I might do rook-chess piece and rook-bird in order to disambiguate them. But now we have this problem, right, of is it better to have terser names like rook is really clean, bishop is really clean, rook-bird and bishop-person and bishop-chess piece is a longer thing. And so in my chess domain ontology, if I don't want to have to keep typing rook-chess piece and bishop-chess piece, and that just gets ridiculous over time, I either have to create a new namespace. So I could, instead of having caseysdenseontology.com, I could have caseysdenseontology.com/chess here. And now chess player is going to be :chess player. That would have a different fully expanded IRI because it would have this /chess in front of it. But now I make that .com bit, get rid of this, a little more different than this master ontology piece. This is tricky. I'm not quite sure what I want to do here. I think what I'm going to go for, and you notice I've done this pattern for other things, what I'm importing is chemistry, earth data, exercises, food, healthcare, human activities. And like if we wanted to look at those, right, and say, okay, where's my anatomy.ttl? This prefix uses the colon as the prefix there. So I've just stuck with that prefix all the way through. And I'm inclined to keep that going, keep that same namespace. So again, this is the thing I'm just going to flag. I'm going to leave it as rook and bishop. I'm going to flag it that there's an increased chance of some name collisions here if I make my ontologies big enough. And we got to watch out for that stuff. All right, so now I've got bishops. Let's see here. Bishops are all chess pieces that can move only on diagonals. Ooh, and actually, I kind of like example subclass bishop light square and bishop dark square. That is an important set of subclasses. Is it a dark square bishop or a light square bishop? Notice here I'm a little lazier on my comment. This one I can say where they capture off of. Maybe I should expand this at some point. But now I'm thinking I'm just going to have some other ontology vocabulary that codifies that too. Okay. So let's go ahead and create our subclasses here. And the superclass name is bishop. And the refinement for me is light square. So now I've got bishop light square. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So bishop dark square. Cool. So I've got my light square and dark square bishops. And let's go ahead and take a pause for a second and look over here, update our ontology, see what we've got. Right, and we are looking at certain physical artifacts, the chess pieces, and we've got two types of bishops and rooks. Cool. Notice I haven't said a whole lot else about these. I'm just creating the taxonomy now, which is great. The first thing you have to do is build a taxonomy. Again, if you've watched some of my other videos, I think of a taxonomy like that's the skeleton of an ontology. So it's good. You need your skeleton. You don't have your skeleton. You just, pile of mush. But it's just the skeleton. We need to flesh this out later and really enforce what these differences are, what they mean, say what it is to be a rook, say what it is to be a bishop in our other vocabulary. Okay. So let's go ahead and keep hashing some of these out here. We've got our bishop. We've got our rooks. Now we need our knights. It is a subclass of chess piece. Great. Chess pieces that move in an L shape. They are very unique. Okay, so we've got our knight, bishop, and rook. Now we need our queen. and that is going to be a subclass of chess piece, and that defaults to that. Now, queen for sure, right? I am going to think about this more. This is probably the kind of thing that I'm going to mull over overnight here the next couple of days and decide what I want to do of. But like, I definitely can't just have queen, like the fundamental queen, only be, in the namespace caseystensontology.com/queen refer to the chess piece as opposed to referring to the monarch. So I'm just thinking, if I say this English word queen, what does it most nearly mean to most people who understand it? And queen does not mean a chess piece over the royal person. Okay. Cool. Now, I'm also thinking for other ways to, I said like there's a light square and dark square bishop. That's great. Another way that we can split up all of these chess pieces is the white pieces and the dark pieces, right? So there are two queens. There's the white queen and the black queen. All right, so we've got the queen. Now we need king, which is a chess piece. That's just that. So chess pieces that move in on the diagonal or straight line as far as they can go before hitting another piece or the edge of the board. And the king is the class of all chess pieces that can move one square in any direction. If they are captured, the game is over. Okay. Queen, king, knight, rook, bishop. Now let's get our pawns in there. Pawn, which is a subclass of the chess piece. And move one or two squares forward to only on their first move they capture diagonally. They can be promoted to another piece, usually a queen. All right. Again, I don't know all of the things I'm going to end up saying in this ontology, but a common is a nice place when you first introduce a class. Just say, like, off the top of my head, what is sort of the core of what this class means? And as you say some of those things, that will tell you, oh, man, they can be promoted, and then they can capture diagonally. Those are things I better have other vocabulary for eventually. I don't want to only say it here in English in the comments. An example subclasses are going to be like the queen's pawn and the king's pawn. And the A pawn and the B pawn, right? That's probably how we're going to be characterizing these. So maybe we've got a name for each of those. I guess if I do A, B, C, D, E, right, like rather than have my like king's pawn and queen's pawn, it might make more sense just to have a pawn for each of the columns. Yeah. All right. Or I guess each of the files is the right chess terminology. Okay. So we now have all of the types of pieces, conceivably all of the types of pieces. Again, we can split these up into black pieces and white pieces and some other things, but we're closer than we were. Now there's this other bit. I think this is what I'm going to end on today. Let's create one more property, and let's create a data type property. And that is for pawns. One of the things that you do in chess is you evaluate material advantages. So if you and I have all the same pieces and you capture one pawn and I haven't captured anything, then you have a material advantage of one pawn. And pawn is worth 1 in sort of a numeric equivalency. So bishops and knights are worth 3, rooks are worth 5, queens are worth 9, kings aren't given any value. They have infinite value because if you lose them, you lose the game. But that's one way that you can calculate, okay, let's just score the total points of material that each side has, and whoever has a greater number of points has an advantage, at least on the material side. You still might not have the overall advantage if you're behind in control of the board or development or tempo or things like that. But it seems reasonable here for us to associate the queen with 9 points and the knight and bishop with 3 and the rook with 5. So let's think about a property that we could create that would do that. I want it to be a data type property because I'm just going to take from pawn to 1. And here is just sort of material value or something like that. Is that a good name for this? I hope what you're realizing, you're watching me do this stuff live. A lot of what building an ontology is understanding how things work. So I know enough about chess that I can at least regurgitate all the piece types and certain things about what causes an advantage or how they move. And then the second thing that you need to do is be able to create terms that mean what you want to say and coming up with the right words so that you're minimizing ambiguity in meaning is really important. And not only are you trying to minimize ambiguity, but you're trying to keep the names relatively terse. So again, I don't just want to say pawn, chess piece, and queen, chess piece, and king, chess piece, because now the name's getting much longer, and the longer names get, like, it makes it a little less human readable. But there's always this back and forth that the more readable it is, the terser it is, that makes it clearer from a, my eyes don't have to read as many words on the screen perspective. But on the flip side, the shorter the term is, the less chance you have for disambiguation. So sometimes the clearest ontologies in terms of you couldn't possibly misunderstand this because I put so many notes into the name, you have these crazy long names, but then people don't pay attention or read the whole name, and so more is lost. So you want to kind of find this middle ground. But let's make a data type property here. I filibustered enough. And let's just say it's material value of chess piece. That's a mouthful. I'm just going to go with it. And the domain here is a chess piece, and the range is an XSD integer. And what's the English translation? So when I say something has some particular piece has a material value of, and this is a subproperty of I don't know yet. So I'm just going to say it's a subproperty of owl top property. And here's the way I make my comments. So this is a case, we talked about this a little bit in the first video, the difference between pref label and RDFS label. Since its material value of chess piece is my IRI, well, my shortened IRI, then I just want the space sentence case version of that material value of chess piece as my RDFS label. But Scott's pref label means if at some point I said that like pawn 01 material value of chess piece 1, right? That's the kind of thing I might say. In English, I would say this pawn has a material value of 1, right? And so pawn 01 would be translated as this pawn. This is just 1. And so I want has a material value of is essentially the English translation of this piece has a material value of. So that's what I'm going for by this pref label. Having pref labels allows me to build up, here's how I could translate this into English if I wanted to. And that's pretty useful, obviously, for doing user interfaces. But it's also useful when you talk about LLMs and things like that. We can put more labels, pref labels, alt labels on our ontology terms that helps sort of anchor us to natural language in ways that then we could use an LLM as the front for interpreting or outputting contents from our ontology. Okay, so now my comment for properties is a little different from my comments for classes. So classes say this is a more specific type of its superclass such that, and then I say what its differentiate is from its superclass. This one, I'm going to say, here is an example triple in the abstract. So chess piece 1 has a material value of chess piece of integer, means that chess piece 1 has a material value of integer. And notice that I'm just reusing this pref label piece. And then I give an example instance where I've actually done that. And here we say pawn01 has a material value of 1. And actually, maybe it's a little better if we do rook 01 has a material value of 5. And then for me, this you don't have to do at all if you don't want to. This is just the style guide that I like. So for every property, I have an example triple. So if I want to say, what does this thing mean? I can say, here are the kinds of utterances or the kind of sentences that are well formed using this new term. Okay. And now I'm going to get, oh, actually, here, this is great. So if we look now, and it says, oh, your ontology changed, and we say it, it's going to die. Why is it going to die? Well, it's going to die because I have this, like, just freestanding quote hanging out here. So if I go back here and I reload it, now we're fine. So, but anybody who's done any programming knows you put some note, you forget to comment out the note, and then it's buried in the code somewhere, and then stuff dies or isn't compiling, and sometimes it could be harder than you care to admit to debug it. So thanks, Protege, for making that a little bit easier for me. All right, so now I have material value of chess piece. Now I want to go up here and say, okay, the relationship pawns are worth 1. How can I say that? Well, this is a data type property which takes us from an individual chess piece to how much it's worth. So I don't want to say this. I do not want to say that pawn has material value of chess piece. Right, that's what I called it. Yeah. Has material value of chess piece 1. Or I guess I should go XSD integer. They're all going to be integers. Okay. This is when I'm going to, maybe you pause the video. Think about this. Why do I not want to do this? If you said, because pawn is a class and has material value of chess piece, should take a named individual in its subject, you are correct. We don't apply has material value of chess piece to classes, but to individuals. And for that reason, we want to say, we could do this. We could say, okay, every pawn is a chess piece, and every pawn is an owl restriction. Owl on property that owl has value 1. So what this says is every pawn is a chess piece, and every pawn is, and if you don't know how to do owl restrictions, there's an owl restrictions video on this channel. Go look it up. Look it up in other places. They're super useful. But this says each one of these is the kind of thing that has a material value of 1. So let's see what that looks like if we go view it in Protege. In Protege here, we look at our pawn. It says pawns are chess pieces that have material values of 1. And so what does that mean? That means that if I were to create a new thing and say it was a pawn, then I could infer from it that it has a material value of 1, which is awesome. That's the kind of thing that I would want to be able to do. Okay. And now this tells me, oh, I actually really like this structure. I am just going to take this and copy it. And now queens have material values of 9. And knights have material values of 3. And bishops, light square and dark square, I'm not going to assert it about them because I'm going to assert it about bishops, have material values of 3, which means that if bishops have it and light squares and dark squares are subclasses of bishops, then they're going to inherit this property as well. And then rook has a material value of 5. Cool. I'm also thinking here that both bishops and knights are considered minor pieces. Maybe I could create a subclass of chess that are minor pieces. It's not a crazy idea. I'm not sure what value I'm going to get out of that yet, so I'm going to hold off on it. But now let's just check here and see, okay, we've got bishop has got value 3 down here. Same for knight. Pawns 1, queen's 9, rook's 5. That stuff all looks like we want. Okay. We've done some more work. We've fleshed out a little bit more. Now, we haven't talked about how these pieces move, and we haven't talked about any events or activities that these things can do. And that seems like a good place for us to go next. But it seems pretty much like a natural stopping point to me. So I think I'm going to tie it up here. But stay tuned next time. We'll get into capturing pieces and moving things around. Man, I'm really excited about this. There's so many things to do. I'm not going to get ahead of myself too much. I'll definitely do some activities next week, and we'll see where we go from there. I'm going to need to start doing several of these a week because I'm going to get excited in doing them. I want to do some Sparkle Anything stuff to get some data in there too. This is going to be incredible. All right. Thanks for bearing with me. Hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks again for the request from Julian Chastain to describe the stuff at the top. If you've got any lingering questions about how this works, drop those below in the comments. I will respond to them. Also, I am putting this on, I will upload this, do a new commit to the Git repo with the updated file here, which means if you want to go follow along, you can. Since I'll always have like the most updated one as where the repo is at, but I'm committing, you could go look at past versions of commits and roll them back in your own version if you wanted to follow along with me, which would be fine. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you next time.